Now, on Tuesday, news broke that Grammy-award-winning singer D'Angelo had died after a prolonged battle with cancer. He was 51 years old. Now, fans of his music can probably match a part of their life to one of his 3 albums. For me, it was his sophomore album, Voodoo. That was a big part of my own high school experience. It was artists like D'Angelo, along with Erykah Badu, Maxwell, Jill Scott and Lauryn Hill, who introduced me to my lifelong love affair with the genre of neo-soul. But there was one song in particular from that Voodoo album, and perhaps equally importantly, the music video to that song, that has become almost symbolic of what D'Angelo represented beyond just his music. The song is the untitled How Does It Feel track, and my next guest is here to tell us how the music video to that song influenced Black masculinity. Warren Clarke is an assistant professor of sociocultural anthropology at the University of Manitoba. Good morning, Warren.
Good morning. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, what's your D'Angelo story?
right from the top. Thank you for asking the question. I think, as you mentioned, that song, How Does It Feel? As a young Black man, seeing that it is okay to be vulnerable and show the top of the top part of your body on TV that way. It was monumental because it's not that I wanted to go ahead and go do that and perform my my on TV that way, but just the amount of attention that it brought during the era.
How did you hear about the song? How did you find out about the video?
It was more or less just like people at school, particularly the girls at the time, right? Just seeing that this video that was so transformative and so sexual, and I think it was a desirable for the body that people were seeing, and it was just outside the norm. Although this was a historical play of what many Black men portray themselves on popular culture, particularly when it comes to singing and even rapping, right? So for me, it was just like the amount of attention that it brought. So saying that maybe that's what I need to look like, so yeah.
So just for listeners who haven't seen the music video, I'll describe it. It's basically a single shot of D'Angelo. He's facing directly into the camera. It starts off with this kind of tight close-up of just his face. Then the camera zooms out. You see his rather ripped torso. He's not wearing a shirt. And the camera keeps zooming out just enough to suggest that this dude might not be wearing any clothes. But the audience never sees anything kind of explicit. It's very much left to their imagination. And just to place it, the Voodoo album came out in 2000, so it's now been 25 years since this video came out. Let's start then with the first aspect we want to explore, which is D'Angelo's kind of physicality and physique in this video. What impact did that have on Black masculinity at the time?
Well, I think it's just a trope that, using the work of Stuart Hall, Spectacle of the Other, when you're thinking about Black men, there's ideas that a Black man ought to be this way. And this is the only way black men can be successful is the exploitation of body, right? And this trope that when you look at a Black man such as D'Angelo, there's this idea, the sexual appetite that goes along with it. For many women, particularly white women, in terms of how the outlook and the perception of what that represented, and historically what that's represented for many years, right? In terms of the outreach of Black masculinity specifically, although that ties into it, I think we also have to think about that era as well, right? It was very highly influenced by Notorious Big, the Wu-Tang Clan, right? You had a lot of rappers, these very hardcore rappers coming out. And exploring their artistry the way they did. And then you had D'Angelo, who looks similar to these men, but he's singing, and he's soft, and he's vulnerable, and he's delectable at the same time for many people, not just women, but people who may be interested in masculinities in that regard, respectfully. So I think there's many entry points that we can definitely explore when it comes to the ideas of Black masculinity and the tropes that come with it, and those stereotypes, as Hall would exemplify in his work in Spectacle of the Other.
How significant was it that he wasn't wearing a shirt, and then you could see his this guy works out clearly.
Yeah, significance of him not wearing a shirt. Again, I think I said, I think it was monumental for its time, right? I think the significance was one to capture attention. But let's take a step back here for a second. When you talk about Michael Eugene Archer, which is his real name, there's a man behind the persona of D'Angelo, right? And one of the things that's documented is that he never wanted to do this type of video, right? And this was something that I was exploring this conversation with my brother Anderson, and then just thinking about why he was forced to do it, right? Based on his management at the time or whatnot, because he never came out with a video after that. Very similar. That was like a one and done thing. So we have to think about, was this something he wanted to do? Was this something that was he forced to do? And I guess we'll never have that definite answer from him, respectfully. But in terms of what that video represented, and also what it represents now, it just represents this appetite for black male flesh, right? And metaphorically or literally sense.
When you saw him and his physique, how did that impact you? You were like a teenager in high school at that time.
Yeah, I'm not thinking so suddenly like I'm speaking right now or thinking right now, right? Like for me, it was like, well, the girls like it, so maybe this is something I should like, right? And then there's been conversations like in terms of, as we were speaking last week or this week or earlier this week, that even his sporting of the cornrows was something that attracted me, saying, well, interesting, that's actually a good look for me. Although I can't sing, mind you, but needless to say, that still stood out to me.
The other kind of aspect you touched on is kind of the sexuality or sexual nature of this video. And there's a part towards the end of the video. Again, it's all kind of suggestion, nothing's explicit, but it appears that he's getting aroused. You can't see anything, but that's definitely kind of suggested. What influence did he have on sexuality when it comes to black masculinity?
Yeah, I think the first entry point for me, I would say, is vulnerability. I think that when you watch that video, I watched it recently before coming on the show this morning, you could see that he is becoming comfortable and he's asking audience to draw audience attention into like, this is who I am, right? Outside of that, in terms of sexuality, and I keep alluding to this appetite idea, is because he's a desirable for many people in that scene, right? When you see a ripped black man looking a certain way who looks oiled up or shiny or however you want to put it, it then creates an arousal for many people. Right, just thinking through in terms of what the possibilities can be. What if he was here? What if I could have someone like that near me? What would I do? There's so many questions that come out of that. But one of the things that is true historically when it comes to black masculinities is that, again, going back to that word appetite, it's been an appetite for many people to only consume black men a certain way. Right, Tamari Katosa, Dr. Katosa, respectfully at Brock University, talks about this idea of black men being the predator, and these strong stereotypes, these metaphorical stereotypes that ties to black males' bodies, it's very hard to detach from. So even though you see a sexualized person such as D'Angelo on TV, there's also that flip side where it's like, well, he is the predator, or he is a black man who's locked in these stereotypical ideas of what black men ought to be, which is the drug dealer or the thug or the sexual prowess of black men, which we will never know, and you can't ask the video because he's performing, but you'll never know unless you were able to talk with him. But you get these suggestive ideas not only based on what you think you know in our contemporary moment, but what we've known historically about black men.
You talked about, when the video came out, the girls in your age group were really kind of reacting positively to him, but he was also, you said, different groups of people were attracted to him.
Yes.
Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, I think it spurs in, as we spoke about, different types of sexual appetites. I think the homoeroticism, I think the heterosexual appetite that comes with that as well. There's different entry points to how you consume his body in a video that way. And
he seemed to be very comfortable with that.
I think it's suggestive that he's comfortable with like that, because as I mentioned before, he never did a video like that following that, right? But I think based on his performance, based on how he was able to just react the way he did in that video, the touching of his body and slowing down his movements, I think it does suggest that he was comfortable with that video. And I think it does invite people to then imagine themselves, regardless of your whatever sexual orientation you are, can perceive themselves being with somebody like that.
You talked about vulnerability. Tell me more about how D'Angelo's video kind of influenced black masculinity when it comes to vulnerability.
I think,
and why do you think that?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. Appreciate that. I think when we talk about vulnerability, the things that black men, going from the barbershop talk that we've been doing here in Winnipeg, across the country, into the Caribbean, is one thing that continues to raise concern is that the ideas of black men being vulnerable is it's very hard for them to do, right? Where's the right space to be vulnerable? How do I be vulnerable with the right people, right? And with this video specifically, I think when you see him coming out in the first a few seconds and he's half naked on the video, it does suggest that he's being vulnerable with us. It does suggest that he's being soft with us, which is very nuanced for black men. Because when you think about black men ought to be tough and ought to be rough, right? Yes, he's sporting the cornrows, but he's also being soft with his voice, right? And that's what's drawing you in to be like, wait a minute. This is not the typical black man I'm used to seeing
or hearing.
Exactly, right? And then when you get further into the video, you're like, wait, he's different. And this is what's attracting a lot of people to him in that video is the difference of black men, but still simultaneously locked in this idea of black masculinity where you ought not to be soft. You're dehumanized and continue to be locked in there and different entry points of what it means to be a black man.
Self-love is another kind of facet of black masculinity that you wanted to talk about when it comes to this video. Tell me about that.
Yes, I think this is a very important topic. I think not just with black men, I just want to respectfully say I think a lot of folks are struggling with just loving themselves, right? And I think this is an opportunity to actually explore that and actually encourage audience members, regardless of who you are, just practice loving yourself. I just want to just offer that as a gift to people who are listening, and I trust that people see that as a gift and nothing to impede your ways of seeing self, and just want to humanize people on this radio morning show here. But when it comes to self-love, it's a very important topic. I think a lot of black men are struggling with.
And
right?
how was he doing it in this video?
I think what we see and suggestive again is that we're seeing someone who's the touching of body, who's able to express himself and saying, without saying it verbally, that this is who I am, right? Accept me for who I am, right? And I think that's part of self-love, right? Like you have to love yourself enough to be vulnerable with the right people, all right? So.
D'Angelo really seemed to kind of be able to cross different lines when it comes to black masculinity. And you talk about the performance of masculinity. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so gender is a performance role, right? Like we don't come to this world knowing what it means to be a man or being a woman or being any gender category, respectfully. I think we also may be mindful that how we learn to be a man, just on the topic of masculinity, is based on historical narratives. So these ideas of manhood came before the individual comes to this world or is born into this world. And how do we understand masculinity, or particularly is how it's governed within our social circles. So, for example, how people will refer to me as Mr. or Dr. Clarke with more of this respect for men, then reinforces to me as the individual that I am a man, or I am performing as how I ought to be as a man. So when we think about the performativity, this comes out of the work of Judith Butler, who's a juggernaut scholar in the social sciences, respectfully, right? Is that when we talk about the performativity of masculinity, it's not to say there's no biological ties to maleness, but you have to learn to be a male. You have to learn and practice maleness. And in regards when you think you know what it means to be a man, it's also then governed and policed by other people around you. Because if you come out of that those ideas of maleness when people are expecting you to practice maleness, then you're like, wait, that's not what I anticipate you being, Warren, or that's what I expect you to be, so-and-so. I need you to confirm. It's not in those words per se, but it's then governed through the actions of people, right? When someone says, hey, Warren, that's a nice beard, then I can reflect, I actually am performing my masculinity. Maybe not so succinctly the way I'm saying it, but we do reflect. We
In
do
subtle ways,
in
right?
subtle
It's
ways,
kind of
exactly.
cemented. The final thing that you actually wanted to talk about was important to you was talking about health.
Yes.
Related to D'Angelo. He passed away due to a kind of prolonged struggle with cancer. Died at the age of 51. Why was that important to you to bring up to this conversation?
And thanks for that question. One of the things that is true about our Canadian moments, our healthcare system is, it is the way it is right now. And I trust that we will see some change in the coming future, in the near future, sorry. But the other thing on the flip side of that is that there's a lot of people who are struggling to even find a family doctor. It's a reality, and this is what it is. And a lot of people with those barriers, aren't receiving proper health care. Right. And even when there's an opportunity to go see a walk-in clinic doctor or some type of medical professional, some particularly black men resist those moments. I'm fine. I'll be fine. Right. And this idea of this is what you ought to be as a man is just to be fine. But being fine is also being aware and being in the know of where your body is. So I urge a lot of people to think about, when's the last time you went to see a doctor? When's the last time you found a family doctor that you're comfortable with? And these are important conversations to have, not just, once on a blue moon. We should be having these conversations, comfortably with people, right? And by doing so, you're not only aware of where your body is, but then you're also in a position to be in a way of healing your body when it's needed, or getting the nutrients you need for your body to sustain a optimal health. Now, the one thing I will say when it comes to D'Angelo, and it's not to say that, you can catch everything before things happen, respectfully. But one of the things that is true is that when you're not checking about your body, you put yourself at risk. Right. And when you're putting yourself at risk and you're going down the road, there's more health complications you have to worry about. So I urge people just to be mindful of those ideas of this health and taking care of self, which is really important.
I can't let this conversation end before we hear the song that we've been talking about for the past 15 minutes. So let's play that untitled track, How Does It Feel? And then we'll come back on the air and chat about it.
All right.
That was D'Angelo with his track Untitled, How Does It Feel? Warren, listening to that?
It was an amazing track. Always going to be something that I'll reflect on even years to come after, even after today. But yeah, amazing track.
And just finally, in kind of 30 seconds or a minute, like what will his legacy be when it comes to black masculinity, if you could sum that up?
I think that for those who are in the genre of neo soul and those who know who D'Angelo was, I think we'll see more artists carry on his type of performance in the area of neo soul. I think that just like greats like Michael Jackson, Prince, who I mentioned to you when we spoke before this interview, that D'Angelo really looked up to, and he followed in his footsteps. So I think he just cements himself and his legacy to be that important to the genre and influencing people coming out who are after him.
Warren, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Warren Clarke is an assistant professor of sociocultural anthropology at the University of Manitoba.